The text came at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday that had already tried to kill Ryan Hale twice, once with a collapsing scaffold and once with his daughter's fever spiking to 103. He was standing in his kitchen, still in work boots caked with construction dust, watching antibiotics dissolve in apple juice, when his phone lit up with 4 words that made his blood stop. "Come pick me up." Then 3 more that restarted it entirely. "I wore the dress." Elena Ward, the woman he'd jokingly offered to marry 3 weeks ago over bad diner coffee and worse circumstances, was standing outside her family's inn in a wedding gown, alone in the rain, waiting for him to make good on a promise he never thought she'd cash in. Before we dive into what happens next, and trust me, you'll want to see how this plays out, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel, and if you're already hooked, hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Now, let me take you back to where this all started. 3 weeks earlier, Ryan Hale had been sitting in a booth at Morgan's Diner at 2 in the morning, nursing cold coffee and reviewing structural calculations on a napkin, when Elena Ward walked in looking like someone who'd just survived a shipwreck. She didn't recognize him at first. Why would she? He was just the guy who'd fixed the boiler at Riverside Inn last winter when her regular contractor ghosted her. She'd paid in cash and homemade bread, apologizing for both, and he told her the bread alone was worth the service call. But tonight, she looked different. Smaller, somehow, despite being the same height. Her dark hair was pulled back in a knot that had started to unravel hours ago. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands shaking as she ordered black coffee she wouldn't drink. Ryan knew that look. He'd worn it himself 4 years ago, the night his ex-wife left and he realized he was raising their daughter alone with $17 in checking and a mortgage 3 months behind. "Elena," he said quietly. She looked up, startled. Then recognition flickered, followed by something that might have been embarrassment. "Ryan, the engineer." "The boiler guy," he corrected with a faint smile. "You okay?" She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "No." He waited. "I just came from the bank," she said finally. Her voice was steady, but only barely. "5th meeting this month. They're foreclosing on the inn 30 days. Ryan set down his coffee. "I thought you had that loan restructuring in progress." "I did. They denied it, said my income's too unstable, my collateral's insufficient, and my business model is—" She paused, reciting from memory. "Inconsistent with long-term viability projections." Translation: "They don't think you can make it." "They're probably right." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "My stepbrother Victor's been circling like a vulture. He wants the land. He's offered to buy me out for 1/3 of what it's worth, and the bank's practically gift-wrapping it for him." Ryan frowned. "Can't you contest that? Get another appraisal?" "With what leverage? I'm a 28-year-old woman running a 50-room inn by myself with seasonal income and mounting debt. On paper, I'm a terrible risk." She stared at her coffee. "The loan officer told me, off the record, that if I had a spouse with stable income and assets, they'd reconsider. Apparently financial partnerships make lenders feel warm and fuzzy." There was a long silence. Then Ryan said something he absolutely shouldn't have. "Marry me." Elena's head snapped up. "What?" "I'm serious. Legally. On paper. I've got steady income, a clean credit history, assets from the sale of my last property. If what you need is a financially stable spouse to co-sign, I can be that." She stared at him like he'd just suggested robbing the bank instead. "Ryan, that's insane. It's strategic. It's fraud. Only if we lie about the terms. We'd be legally married. That's not fraud. That's matrimony with unusual motivations." He leaned forward. "Look, I know how this sounds, but I also know what it's like to be trapped by numbers on a spreadsheet when the people holding the pen don't care about the actual story. You're not failing because you're incompetent. You're failing because the system's rigged against people like you." "People like me?" "People who do the work, people who show up, people who don't have family money or corporate backing or the right last name." He paused. "I was you 4 years ago. Different crisis, same trap. Someone helped me then. I'm just paying it forward." Elena shook her head slowly. "You don't even know me." I know you paid me in bread because you didn't have enough cash and still tipped me $20 you couldn't afford. I know you answer your own phone at midnight when guests call about broken faucets. I know you're trying to save something that matters to you, and you're losing because the odds are garbage. He met her eyes. That's enough. She was quiet for a long moment. This is the craziest thing anyone's ever suggested to me. Probably. But is it crazier than losing everything to your stepbrother because a bank won't see past a spreadsheet? Another silence. Then she laughed, sharp, startled, almost helpless. If I actually said yes, what would that even look like? Ryan pulled out his phone and started typing. We'd need a prenup. Clean terms. The marriage is financial partnership only. No claims on each other's personal assets outside the jointly held property. We maintain separate residences, separate lives. You keep full operational control of the inn, said. I co-sign the loan and provide financial documentation as needed. When the inn's stable and the debts restructured, we dissolve the marriage quietly. No drama, no mess. And you do this because I can. Because it's the right thing to do. And because... He hesitated. Because watching people lose things they fought for when the system won't give them a fair shot makes me furious, and this is something I can actually fix. Elena stared at him. You're serious? Completely. This is insane. You already said that. I'm saying it again because it bears repeating. But her voice had changed. There was something fragile and desperate threading through it now. Hope, maybe, or the terrible temptation of a life raft when you're drowning. Think about it, Ryan said quietly. If you decide it's too crazy, I'll never bring it up again. But if you decide you want to fight back, I'm here. He left cash on the table and walked out into the November cold, leaving Elena Ward sitting alone in a diner booth with a choice that shouldn't exist. Ryan didn't hear from her for 2 weeks. He went back to his life, single father, structural engineer, part-time contractor when the jobs were good and the hours flexible. His daughter Mia was 7, whip-smart, and deeply suspicious of anything that disrupted routine. He picked her up from school, helped with homework, made dinosaur-shaped pancakes on weekends, and tried not to think about the woman he'd offered to marry on a whim in a diner at 2 a.m. Then, on a Wednesday afternoon, his phone rang. Ryan? It's Elena. He stopped mid-step in the hardware store parking lot. Hey, I need to know if you meant it. I did. Still? Yes. There was a pause. He could hear her breathing, fast, uneven. Victor filed a claim against the inn yesterday. He's alleging I've mismanaged the estate trust and requesting legal authority to assume control. If he wins, I don't just lose the business. I lose everything my parents built, everything they left me. Ryan's jaw tightened. What do you need? I need a financially stable spouse who can walk into that bank with me and make them believe I'm not a sinking ship. Her voice cracked. I need you to mean it. I meant it then. I mean it now. There's no time for a prenup. No time for lawyers. If we do this, we do it fast. How fast? Friday, courthouse, noon. Ryan closed his eyes. Friday was 2 days away. He had a site inspection scheduled, a parent-teacher meeting, a daughter who'd ask questions he wasn't ready to answer. Okay. Okay? Okay. He heard her exhale, a sound like a sob that didn't quite break. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. We've still got to pull this off. Friday arrived with brutal clarity. Ryan told Mia he had an important work meeting and asked his neighbor, a retired teacher who loved his daughter almost as much as he did, to pick her up from school. He put on the one suit he owned that didn't smell like drywall dust. He printed financial statements, tax returns, and a letter from his employer confirming his salary and tenure. Then he drove to the courthouse and waited. Elena arrived at 11:53 a.m., wearing a simple gray dress and carrying a folder thick with documents. She looked terrified. Ready? He asked. Absolutely not. Good. Me neither. They walked in together. The ceremony took 11 minutes. The officiant was a tired-looking woman in her 50s who'd clearly seen stranger things than two people getting married with the emotional intensity of a hostage negotiation. She asked the required questions. They gave the required answers. Ryan slid a plain silver band onto Elena's finger. He'd bought two at a pawn shop that morning for $40 total. "You may kiss the bride," the officiant said flatly. Ryan glanced at Elena. She gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. He kissed her. Brief, chaste, completely surreal. "Congratulations," the officiant said, handing them the signed certificate. "You're legally married." They walked out into the November cold as husband and wife. Elena stopped on the courthouse steps, staring at the marriage certificate like it might dissolve in her hands. "This is real," she said faintly. "Legally binding," Ryan confirmed. "I just married a man I barely know to save a building. And I just married a woman I barely know to help her fight a rigged system. We're both making questionable life choices today." She laughed, sharp and startled. Then she looked at him, really looked at him, and something in her expression shifted.
"Why are you doing this, Ryan? Really?" He was quiet for a moment. 4 years ago, I was 3 months from losing my house. My ex had left. I had a 2-year-old daughter and a credit score in the toilet. A friend I hadn't spoken to in years showed up with a check and a contract offer that saved me. He didn't ask questions. He just said, "Pay it forward when you can." Ryan met her eyes. "This is me paying it forward." Elena's eyes were bright. "I don't know how to—" "Don't," he said gently. "Just win. That's all the thanks I need." She nodded, slipping the certificate into her folder with hands that had finally stopped shaking. "Okay then. Let's go tell the bank I'm a financially stable married woman now." The meeting was scheduled for Monday. Elena walked into First National Bank with Ryan at her side, wedding certificate in hand and a steel spine Ryan hadn't seen before. The loan officer, a man named Henderson with a receding hairline and a condescending smile, looked up as they entered. "Mrs. Ward, I wasn't expecting you to bring company." "It's Mrs. Hale now, actually." Elena set the certificate on his desk. "And this is my husband, Ryan Hale. We were married Friday." Henderson's smile flickered. "I see. Congratulations." "Thank you. We're here to resubmit the loan restructuring application with updated financial information." She slid across a folder containing everything Ryan had prepared: tax returns, bank statements, employment verification, asset documentation. Henderson flipped through it slowly. His expression shifted from condescension to calculation. "This is quite a change in circumstances." "My circumstances haven't changed," Elena said coolly. "My financial partnership has. The end-to-end income remains steady. My operational history remains strong. The only variable that's shifted is the one your institution deemed insufficient, and I've addressed it." Henderson frowned. "Mrs. Hale, I hope you understand that this bank takes marriage fraud very seriously." Ryan leaned forward. "Then you'll be thrilled to know this marriage is entirely legitimate. We have witnesses, a signed certificate, and a legal binding contract. If you'd like to contest its validity, you're welcome to try. But I suspect that conversation will involve your legal department and become significantly more expensive than simply processing the loan restructuring my wife has requested." There was a long silence. Henderson set down the folder. "I'll need to review this with our underwriting team." "Of course," Elena said smoothly. "We'll expect a response within 5 business days, per your institution's stated processing timeline." She stood. Ryan followed. As they walked out, Elena's hand found his. Briefly, tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "You did that yourself," Ryan said quietly. "I just stood there looking financially stable." She smiled. "You're very good at that." The response came in 4 days. The loan restructuring was approved. Elena called Ryan at the job site, and he could hear her crying through the phone. "It worked," she said. "It actually worked. They're giving me 18 months at a reduced rate. I can keep the inn. I can fight Victor's claim. I can—" "Breathe," Ryan said gently. She laughed, breathless and wet. "I'm breathing. I'm just— Thank you. Thank you. I don't have better words than that, but you don't need better words. You need to go run your inn and prove them all wrong. I will. I promise." A pause. "Ryan?" "Yeah?" "If you ever need anything, you call me. You understand? This debt doesn't go away just because the bank approved the loan. There's no debt, Elena. We're square. We're married. That means we're partners.
even if it's just on paper. Ryan smiled faintly. Okay, partners, Schatz. He didn't expect to hear from her again beyond paperwork and formalities. But 3 weeks later, on a Thursday night when Mia was at a sleepover and Ryan was alone in his house trying to fix a leaking sink, his phone rang. Ryan, it's Elena. I need help. He was out the door in 5 minutes. When he arrived at Riverside Inn, Elena was standing in the main ballroom in work clothes and safety goggles, staring at a section of floor that had partially collapsed under a broken pipe. It gave out an hour ago, she said. No one was hurt, but I've got a wedding booked here in 6 days, and the contractor I called says he can't start repairs for 2 weeks. Ryan crouched, examining the damage. The subfloor's rotted. You'll need to replace at least 20 square feet, maybe more depending on moisture spread. Can you do it? He looked up at her. Yeah, but it'll take time. I'll need to source materials, pull the damaged sections, treat for mold. I'll pay you. Whatever your rate is. Elena, I mean it. You've already saved my business. I'm not asking you to fix my floors for free just because we have a marriage license. Ryan stood slowly. How about this? I'll fix your floor. You feed me while I work. We'll call it even. She stared at him. That's not even. It's even enough. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she nodded. Okay, but I'm making you the good bread, not the day-old stuff. Deal. He worked on the floor for 3 days straight after his day job ended. Elena brought him coffee, sandwiches, and homemade soup. They didn't talk much at first. She was managing a dozen crises simultaneously, and he was focused on precision work. But by the third night, she started staying. She sat on a stepladder with a mug of tea, watching him measure and cut and fit new boards into place. You're good at this, she said quietly. I've had practice. How'd you get into engineering? Ryan smiled faintly. I liked building things as a kid. Legos, model bridges, tree forts that collapsed spectacularly. My high school physics teacher told me I had a good brain for structures. I believed her. He paused. Took me 8 years to finish my degree because I was working full-time to pay for it. But I got there. And now you fix floors for stubborn innkeepers. Only the ones I'm married to. She laughed. How's that going, by the way? The marriage? Weirdly functional. You? Same. I keep forgetting I'm legally married until someone calls me Mrs. Hale and I panic for a second. You can keep using Ward if it's easier. No, she said thoughtfully. I think I like Hale. It feels like armor. Ryan looked up at her. Good. You should feel armored. You've earned it. Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary. Then Elena cleared her throat. I should let you work. Weddings in 3 days, and I still have 17 fires to put out. Go. I've got this. She stood, hesitated, then leaned down and kissed his cheek, quick and warm. Thank you, Ryan. She was gone before he could respond. But the wedding went off flawlessly. The floor held. The guests danced. The bride cried happy tears and told Elena the venue was perfect. Ryan watched from the back of the room, still in work clothes because he'd been making final adjustments until an hour before the ceremony. Elena caught his eye across the crowd and mouthed 2 words. Thank you. He nodded. Afterward, when the guests had left and the cleanup crew was finishing, Elena found him outside on the inn's back patio, staring at the river. You're still here, she said. Wanted to make sure nothing else broke. She smiled. Nothing broke. Everything held. Good. She sat beside him on the bench. I've been thinking. Dangerous. Probably. She turned to face him. This marriage, it's supposed to be temporary, a legal arrangement, but it doesn't feel temporary anymore. Ryan's pulse kicked up. No? No. It feels like partnership, like the real thing, except without the... She paused. The relationship part, relationship, and that bothers you? It confuses me, because I keep wanting to call you when things go wrong. I keep wanting your opinion on decisions. She stopped. I keep forgetting this is supposed to be fake. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. It's not fake, he said finally. It's unconventional, but it's not fake. We made vows. We signed papers. We're building something together, even if it doesn't look like a traditional marriage. Then what does it look like?
I don't know yet, but I think we get to decide that. Elena stared at him. Then, slowly, she leaned her head against his shoulder. Okay, she whispered. Let's decide together. Ryan's arm came around her, steady and warm, and for the first time since this whole impossible thing began, it felt like maybe, just maybe, they'd built something that wouldn't collapse.
But foundation cracks don't always show right away, and Victor Ward was just getting started. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, slipped under the inn's front door like a threat wrapped in legal letterhead. Elena found it when she came downstairs at 6 a.m. to start coffee for the early checkout guests. She recognized the law firm's name immediately, Whitmore and Associates, the same firm Victor had used to contest their father's will 3 years ago. Her hands were shaking by the time she finished reading. Victor was challenging the marriage, not just questioning it, challenging its legal validity on grounds of fraud, citing suspicious timing, financial motivation, and lack of genuine marital cohabitation. He was demanding a forensic audit of the inn's finances, requesting depositions from both Elena and Ryan, and filing a motion to freeze the restructured loan pending investigation. Elena sat down hard on the bottom stair, the letter crumpling in her fist. She'd known Victor wouldn't give up easily. She'd expected pushback, resistance, maybe another low-ball buyout offer. But this was different. This was scorched earth. Her phone was in her hand before she consciously decided to call. Ryan answered on the second ring, his voice rough with sleep. Elena, what's wrong? Victor's suing us. He's claiming the marriage is fraudulent and trying to freeze the loan. There was a pause. She heard rustling, then footsteps. Ryan getting out of bed, moving into another room so he wouldn't wake Mia. Send me the letter, he said, his voice sharper now, fully awake. All of it. I'll call my attorney. Ryan, this could get expensive. If he pushes this to court, then we go to court. Elena, listen to me. The marriage is legal. We didn't lie about anything. We signed papers, made vows, filed taxes jointly. Victor can challenge it all he wants, but he's not going to win. He doesn't have to win. He just has to make it hurt. Her voice cracked. He just has to drag it out long enough that the bank pulls the loan and I lose everything anyway. He won't. You don't know that. No, Ryan said quietly. But I know you, and I know you don't quit, so we fight back. Elena closed her eyes, pressing the phone tight against her ear. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. You didn't drag me anywhere. I walked in with my eyes open. A pause. I'll be there in an hour. Don't do anything until I get there. Okay. And Elena? Yeah? We're going to win this. She wanted to believe him, but when she looked down at the letter in her hand, all she could see was Victor's endgame written in legal jargon and thinly veiled threats. He didn't just want the inn, he wanted to destroy her for daring to fight back. Ryan arrived 53 minutes later with a travel mug of coffee, a legal pad, and a grim expression that told Elena he'd already started strategizing. They sat in the inn's small office, really just a converted storage room with a desk and filing cabinets, and went through the letter line by line. He's alleging we don't live together, Ryan said, tapping the relevant paragraph. That's going to be his primary angle. If he can prove we're maintaining completely separate lives with no genuine marital relationship, he can argue the marriage was entered into solely for financial benefit. Which it was, Elena said flatly. Which it started as, Ryan corrected. But marriages don't have to look a certain way to be legitimate. Plenty of couples maintain separate residences for work, family, or personal reasons. The question isn't whether we live together, it's whether we're acting as spouses in good faith. And are we? Ryan looked at her steadily. That depends. Are you asking legally or personally? Elena's breath caught. Legally? Legally, yes. We filed joint taxes, we co-signed financial documents. We've made decisions together regarding your business, which is now jointly held property under marital law. We've been seen together publicly, attended events as a couple, and maintained consistent communication. He paused. Personally, I'd say we're doing better than half the married couples I know. Despite everything, Elena almost smiled. Is that the bar? It's a low bar, but we're clearing it. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. So what do we do?
We document everything, every phone call, every text, every time we've been together. We get affidavits from people who've seen us as a couple, the bank officer, the wedding venue staff, anyone who can testify to the legitimacy of our relationship. He flipped a page on his legal pad. And we get ahead of the cohabitation issue. How? Ryan met her eyes. One of us moves in with the other. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Elena stared at him. You're serious? Victor's argument falls apart if we're living together. No judge is going to rule our marriage fraudulent if we're sharing a residence, co-parenting, building a life together. Ryan, you have Mia. You can't just uproot her because my stepbrother's being vindictive. I'm not uprooting her. I'm introducing her to my wife and explaining that we're going to spend more time at the inn. He said it so calmly, like it wasn't a completely insane proposition. She's 7, she's resilient, and honestly, she's been asking questions about why I have a wedding ring but no wife at home. What have you been telling her? That it's complicated, which is true. He smiled faintly. She'll like you. You make good bread. That's your criteria for a stepmother? Good bread? It's a start. Elena wanted to laugh or cry, or possibly both. This is insane, she said. You've said that before. I'll probably say it again. Ryan leaned forward, his expression serious now. Elena, I know this is a lot. I know it's way beyond what you signed up for. But if we're going to do this, if we're going to fight Victor and win, we have to commit. Halfway measures aren't going to cut it anymore. She thought about the inn, about her parents' legacy crumbling under legal fees and Victor's relentless sabotage, about the life she'd been trying to save slipping further away every day. Then she thought about Ryan showing up at 2 a.m. to fix a collapsed floor, about him standing beside her in the bank with quiet, unshakable confidence, about the way he'd looked at her on the patio and said, "We get to decide what this looks like." "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay? Okay. You and Mia move into the inn. We'll make it work." Ryan's shoulders dropped slightly, relief she hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Thank you," he said. Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen the guest rooms. The plumbing's questionable and the heating's worse. I'm an engineer. I'll fix it." "Of course you will." They told Mia that weekend. Ryan brought her to the inn on a Saturday afternoon, and Elena tried not to panic as she watched a 7-year-old with dark braids and suspicious eyes walk through the front door. "This is Elena," Ryan said. "Remember I told you about her? She's my wife." Mia looked Elena up and down with the brutal assessment only children can manage. "You're really pretty. Dad didn't say you were pretty." Ryan coughed. "I definitely said she was pretty." "You said she was nice. That's different." Mia turned back to Elena. "Are you nice?" "I try to be," Elena said carefully. "Would you like some cookies? I made chocolate chip this morning." Mia's eyes narrowed. "Homemade or store-bought?" "Homemade. Did you use real butter? Is there any other kind?" A pause. Then Mia nodded, apparently satisfied. "Okay, I'll try one." They sat in the inn's kitchen, a massive industrial space that still had the original 1920s tile work, and Mia ate 3 cookies while asking rapid-fire questions about the building, the guests, and whether Elena had any pets. "I don't," Elena admitted, "but there's a cat that lives in the garden shed. I feed her sometimes." "What's her name?" "She doesn't have one. She's very independent." "That's silly. Everything needs a name." Mia thought for a moment. "I'll call her Duchess." "Duchess it is." Ryan watched them with an expression Elena couldn't quite read, something between hope and anxiety and bone-deep exhaustion. After cookies, Mia wanted a tour. Elena showed her through the ballroom, the dining hall, the library with its floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and finally the guest suite they'd prepared on the 3rd floor, 2 adjoining rooms with a shared bathroom and a window overlooking the river. "This is where you and your dad will stay," Elena said. "Your room's got the bed with the quilts, and your dad's is through that door. My room's down the hall if you need anything." Mia explored both rooms thoroughly, testing the bed springs, examining the closet, peering out the window. "It's really big," she said finally. "Too big?" "No, just different." She looked at Elena. "Why don't you and Dad share a room? Married people usually share rooms." Elena's heart stopped.
Ryan cleared his throat. Elena and I have a different kind of marriage, kiddo. We're partners, but we also like our own space. Like Aunt Marie and Uncle James? Exactly like that. Mia seemed to accept this. Okay, can I go see Duchess now? Absolutely. She bolted from the room and Elena heard her footsteps thundering down the stairs. Ryan let out a long breath. That went better than I expected. She's wonderful, Elena said quietly. She's a handful, smart, stubborn, asks a million questions. I like her already. Ryan smiled. Good, because you're stuck with both of us now. They moved in the following week. It was strange watching Ryan and Mia settle into the inn's rhythms. Strange seeing toys scattered in the third-floor hallway and children's books stacked on the library shelves. Strange hearing Mia's laughter echoing through rooms that had been silent for too long. But it was also good. Ryan fixed things, constantly, compulsively, like he couldn't help himself. The loose railing on the main staircase, the temperamental oven in the kitchen, the window in the second-floor hallway that had been painted shut for a decade. He worked in the margins of his day, before dawn and after Mia went to bed, and Elena would find evidence of his repairs like small gifts left throughout the building. Mia adopted Duchess with fierce determination, convincing the extremely independent cat to tolerate being carried around the garden and fed premium tuna on a regular schedule. She also appointed herself Elena's assistant, helping fold linens, arrange flowers, and greet guests with a formality that was absolutely precious. And Elena found herself cooking for 3 instead of 1, found herself listening for Ryan's truck in the driveway and Mia's voice calling her name, found herself feeling less alone than she had in years. It was working. Against all odds, against all logic, it was actually working. Then Victor escalated. The insurance inspection was scheduled without warning. Elena got the call on a Wednesday morning, her policy provider informing her that they'd received a complaint regarding structural safety and would be sending an inspector within 48 hours to assess the building's compliance with current codes. What complaint? Elena demanded. From who? The complaint was filed anonymously, ma'am, but given the nature of the allegations, we're required to investigate. Elena hung up and immediately called Ryan. It's Victor, she said without preamble. It has to be. He's trying to get the insurance company to drop coverage. Can he do that? If the inspector finds violations, yes. And this building's old, Ryan. There are probably a dozen things that don't meet modern code, even if they're perfectly safe. Ryan was quiet for a moment. When's the inspection? Friday, 10 a.m. Okay, I'll take the day off. We'll go through the building top to bottom and document everything. If there are legitimate violations, we'll have a plan to address them. If there aren't, we'll have proof that this is a harassment campaign. And if they drop the coverage anyway, then we find new coverage. Elena, Victor's trying to corner you with pressure tactics. He wants you to panic and make mistakes. Don't give him that. She closed her eyes. I'm trying not to. I know, and you're doing better than you think. Basek. The next 36 hours were brutal. Ryan and Elena went through every inch of the inn with clipboards, cameras, and Ryan's professional eye for structural integrity. They documented fire exits, electrical systems, plumbing, foundational support, roof integrity, and code compliance for public spaces. The building was old, but it was solid. Ryan's repairs over the past months had addressed most of the critical issues, and the rest were minor cosmetic concerns that didn't impact safety. We're in good shape, Ryan said as they finished the final walkthrough Thursday night. Better than good, actually. This building's safer than half the new constructions I inspect. Tell that to Victor. I will if I have to. The inspector arrived Friday morning at exactly 10 a.m. A middle-aged woman named Patricia Chen, who introduced herself with brisk professionalism and immediately began her assessment. Ryan shadowed her the entire time, answering questions with precise technical detail and providing documentation for every repair, upgrade, and compliance measure. Elena watched him work, calm, methodical, absolutely unshakable, and felt something fierce and warm settle in her chest. This was what partnership looked like. Not romance, not grand gestures, but someone standing beside you when the ground felt unsteady and refusing to let you fall. The inspection took 4 hours. When Patricia finally finished, she reviewed her notes in the front office while Ryan and Elena waited with mounting tension. Well, Patricia said finally, I'll be submitting a full report to the insurance company, but I can tell you now I found no major violations. A few minor recommendations for updated signage and exit lighting, but nothing that impacts your current coverage. She looked at Elena. Whoever filed that complaint either hasn't been in this building recently or has an agenda beyond legitimate safety concerns. Elena's relief was so sharp it felt like pain. Thank you, she managed. Patricia nodded. You've got a good building here, Mrs. Hale, and she glanced at Ryan. A husband who clearly knows what he's doing. You're in good hands. After she left, Elena turned to Ryan. We did it, she said. You did it. I just documented what you've been maintaining for years. Don't do that. Don't minimize what you've done for me. For us. She stepped closer. You saved this place, Ryan. Not just with the marriage, but with every repair, every inspection, every time you've stood between me and Victor's sabotage. Ryan's expression softened. That's what partners do. Is it? Yeah, it is. They stood there in the quiet office, close enough to touch, but not quite touching, and Elena felt the ground shift beneath her in a way that had nothing to do with foundations or structural integrity. She was falling for him, not the careful, controlled partnership they'd agreed to, not the strategic marriage built on paperwork and pragmatism. She was falling for Ryan Hale, for his steadiness, his competence, his quiet kindness, and the way he made her feel like she wasn't fighting alone anymore. And that terrified her more than anything Victor could throw at them, because this was supposed to be temporary. This was supposed to be safe, and nothing about what she was feeling right now felt safe at all. That night, after Mia was asleep and the inn was quiet, Elena found Ryan in the library. He was sitting in one of the old leather armchairs, reviewing blueprints for a project he was consulting on, his reading glasses perched on his nose. Can we talk? Elena asked. He looked up. Of course. She sat across from him, curling into the opposite chair. For a long moment, she didn't speak, just tried to find words for something she'd never expected to feel. This is getting complicated, she said finally. Ryan set down the blueprints. I know. Do you? Because I'm not sure I do anymore. She pulled her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. When we started this, it was clear. We had rules, boundaries, and exit strategy. But somewhere between the bank meetings and the floor repairs and you moving in with your daughter, those lines got blurred. And that bothers you? It scares me. She met his eyes. Because I don't know what this is anymore, Ryan. I don't know if we're still pretending or if somewhere along the way we stopped. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. I stopped pretending the night you kissed my cheek after I fixed the ballroom floor. Elena's breath caught. But I didn't say anything, he continued, because I wasn't sure you felt the same way. And I didn't want to pressure you into something you weren't ready for just because we're legally married and living under the same roof. What if I'm ready? The words came out barely above a whisper. Ryan's eyes darkened. Then we need to talk about what that means. Because if we do this, if we turn this partnership into something more, there's no going back to the way things were. Maybe I don't want to go back. Elena, I mean it. She leaned forward. I spent the last 3 years trying to save this place by myself, trying to be strong enough, smart enough, independent enough to prove I didn't need anyone. And then you showed up and offered me something I never expected, partnership. Not rescue, not pity, just partnership. Her voice cracked. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you. Ryan stood slowly, crossing the space between them. He knelt in front of her chair, his hands finding hers. You're not going to lose me, he said quietly. I'm not going anywhere. Whether this stays a partnership or becomes something more, I'm here. For you, for the inn, for whatever comes next. Elena's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Promise? I promise. She leaned down, and he met her halfway. And when their lips touched, it wasn't the brief, chaste kiss from the courthouse steps. It was real. It was fire and want, and the kind of certainty that made everything else fall away. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ryan rested his forehead against hers. We should probably figure out the logistics of this, he murmured. Elena laughed, soft and breathless. Logistics? Mia, the inn,
Victor's lawsuit, the fact that we're still technically in a marriage of convenience that just got significantly less convenient. Are you always this practical? Yes, it's a character flaw. She kissed him again just because she could. I think I can live with it.
They decided to take things slow, not because they didn't want each other, that much was abundantly clear, but because they had a 7-year-old to consider, a legal battle to win, and a business to run. So they dated. Sort of. It was the strangest courtship Elena had ever experienced. They were already married, already living together, already co-parenting Mia, but they carved out time to actually know each other beyond crisis management and structural repairs. Ryan took her to dinner at a small Italian place in town where they talked about everything except the inn and Victor and lawsuits. Elena learned that he'd wanted to be an astronaut as a kid, that he collected vintage tool catalogs, and that he had a deeply nerdy love of bridge engineering that was somehow incredibly endearing. She told him about her parents, how her mother had taught her to bake bread, and her father had shown her how to balance books and read people, how they died in a car accident when she was 23, leaving her a legacy she'd been desperately trying to honor ever since. They'd be proud of you, Ryan said quietly. You didn't know them. I know you, that's enough. They went to Mia's school play together, sat in the audience holding hands, and clapped embarrassingly loud when she delivered her 3 lines as tree number 2 with perfect dramatic timing. They cooked dinner together in the inn's massive kitchen, Ryan handling anything that required precision and timing, Elena covering baking and anything that needed intuition over measurement. And late at night, after Mia was asleep and the guests were settled, they'd find each other in the library or on the back patio and talk until exhaustion forced them to bed. Separate beds. Because they'd agreed to take things slow, even if slow was killing them both. Victor's next move came exactly 3 weeks later. He filed a motion to compel depositions, demanding both Ryan and Elena testify under oath about the nature of their relationship, their financial arrangements, and their living situation. The court granted the motion. They had 2 weeks to prepare. Ryan's attorney, a sharp woman named Caroline Reeves, who specialized in family law and had 0 patience for Victor's games, met with them to go over strategy. He's going to try to rattle you, Caroline said bluntly. He'll ask invasive questions about your sex life, your finances, your feelings for each other. The goal is to get you to contradict each other or admit something that undermines the marriage's legitimacy. So what do we do? Elena asked. You tell the truth, but you tell it strategically. Caroline looked between them. Are you sharing a bedroom? No, Ryan said. Do you plan to? A pause. Elena and Ryan exchanged a glance. Eventually, Elena said carefully. Good, that's your answer, not no, which sounds like your roommates. Eventually, which sounds like a married couple making decisions at their own pace. Caroline made a note. Do you love each other? Another pause. Yes, Ryan said quietly. Elena's heart kicked. Yes. Caroline smiled slightly. Then say that. Don't hedge, don't qualify, don't explain the timeline. Just tell them you love each other and you're building a life together. Because here's the thing, Victor can challenge the origins of your marriage all he wants. But if you two walk into that deposition room as a united front who genuinely care about each other, his case falls apart. And if we mess up, Elena asked, then we deal with it, but you won't. Caroline closed her folder. You've already survived the hard part. Now you just have to survive Victor. The depositions were scheduled for the following Monday. Elena went first. Victor's attorney, a slick man named Patterson who looked like he'd been born in a suit, led her through 2 hours of questions designed to undermine everything she'd built. How long had she known Ryan before marrying him? How much financial benefit had she received from the marriage? Why hadn't they lived together initially? Did she consider this a real marriage or a business arrangement? Elena answered every question with calm precision, refusing to be shaken. I married Ryan because I needed help, yes. But I stayed married to him because I love him. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. Patterson leaned forward. But you didn't love him when you married him, did you? I didn't know him well enough to love him yet. That came later. How convenient. It's called getting to know someone.
Most people do it before marriage. We did it after. Either way, the result is the same. We're married, we're committed, and we're building a life together. Patterson tried several more angles, but Elena didn't budge. When she walked out of the conference room, Ryan was waiting. "How bad?" he asked. "Terrible, but I didn't break." He pulled her into a hug, brief but fierce. "That's my wife." She smiled against his shoulder. Damn right. Ryan's deposition was next. He was in there for 90 minutes, and when he emerged, he looked exhausted but steady. "They asked about Mia," he said as they walked to the car, "whether I was using the marriage to provide her with financial stability, whether I'd entered into it with the intent to exploit your property for her benefit." Elena stopped walking. "What did you say?" "I said my daughter's well-being is always a factor in my decisions, but that doesn't make those decisions fraudulent. I said I married you because you needed help, and I was in a position to provide it. And I'm staying married to you because you're the best partner I've ever had, and I'd be an idiot to walk away from that." Her eyes stung. "You said that?" "Word for word, and it's true." Elena reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. "We're going to win this, aren't we?" "Yeah," Ryan said, "we are." But that night, lying alone in her room with the inn quiet around her, Elena couldn't shake the fear that kept circling back. Because Victor wasn't done, and the worst move, the one she hadn't seen coming yet, was still ahead. The worst move came disguised as opportunity. Elena was in the kitchen Thursday morning, prepping breakfast for a group of corporate guests, when her phone rang with an unfamiliar number. She almost didn't answer. Her hands were covered in flour and she had muffins in the oven on a timer. But something made her wipe her hands and pick up. "Elena Hale?" The voice was professional, female, vaguely familiar. "Speaking." "This is Jennifer Morrison from Cascade Trust Company. We met briefly at your father's estate settlement 3 years ago." Elena's stomach dropped. Cascade Trust managed the family trust her parents had established, the trust that technically owned the inn's property, with Elena as the designated beneficiary and operator. "I remember," Elena said carefully. "What can I do for you?" "I'm calling because we've received a formal challenge to the trust's current management structure. Victor Ward has filed a petition claiming mismanagement of trust assets and requesting the court appoint him as co-trustee with authority to make operational decisions regarding the property." The muffins started burning. Elena didn't move. "On what grounds?" she managed. "He's citing the recent loan restructuring, the marriage you entered into shortly before said restructuring, and what he's characterizing as financial instability requiring outside intervention. He's also provided documentation suggesting the property's value has declined under your management and that you've made decisions contrary to the trust's long-term preservation goals." "That's insane. I've increased revenue every year. I've maintained the property, upgraded systems, expanded services. I'm not questioning your management, Mrs. Hale. I'm informing you of the legal challenge. The trust board will review the petition at our meeting next month, but given the nature of the allegations, we're required to conduct an independent assessment of the property's current status and financial health." Elena's mind was racing. What does that mean? "It means we'll be sending auditors to review your books, inspect the property, and evaluate your operational decisions over the past 3 years. If we find evidence supporting Mr. Ward's claims, the board may grant his petition. If we find his allegations baseless, the challenge will be dismissed. And in the meantime, all major operational decisions regarding the property are frozen pending review. No new loans, no significant expenditures, no changes to the trust structure." The timer went off. The kitchen filled with the acrid smell of burning blueberries. "How long will this review take?" Elena asked. 4 to 6 weeks minimum, possibly longer if complications arise. Elena closed her eyes. "Thank you for the notification. I'm sorry, Mrs. Hale. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear." The call ended. Elena stood in her burning kitchen, flour on her hands and panic in her throat, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, she wanted to break something. Instead, she pulled the ruined muffins from the oven, opened every window to clear the smoke, and called Ryan. He was on site at a commercial inspection 40 minutes away, but he answered immediately. "Victor's going after the trust," Elena said without preamble. "He's claiming I've mismanaged the estate and trying to get himself appointed co-trustee."
Ryan's response was a single, vicious curse that Elena had never heard him use before. "Can he do that?" he asked. "Apparently he already has. The trust company's sending auditors. Everything's frozen until they complete their review." "When?" "They start next week." Another curse, quieter this time. Okay, we can handle this."
"Do you have clean books?" "Spotless. I've kept meticulous records since day one."
"Good. Then we document everything, provide full transparency, and let the auditors see exactly how well you've been managing this property." He paused. "This is going to be invasive, Elena. They'll want access to everything: financial records, operational decisions, even personal spending if it touches the business." "I know. And they'll interview staff, guests, anyone who can speak to how you run this place." "I know." "Elena, I know, Ryan." Her voice cracked. "I know it's going to be terrible and invasive and that Victor's doing this specifically to break me. But I also know I've done nothing wrong, and I have to believe that matters." Ryan was quiet for a moment. "It does matter, and you're not doing this alone. You can't fix this one with engineering." "No, but I can stand next to you while you prove Victor wrong. Again." Despite everything, Elena smiled. "You're really committed to this partnership thing, aren't you? Legally binding, remember? You're stuck with me." "Lucky me." "Damn right." After she hung up, Elena started another batch of muffins. Then she called her staff together and explained the situation with as much calm as she could muster. Then she pulled every financial record, every receipt, every operational log from the past 3 years and began organizing them for audit. And when Mia got home from school and asked why Elena looked sad, Elena knelt down and said, "Just grown-up stuff, sweetheart. Nothing for you to worry about." Mia studied her with those serious 7-year-old eyes. "Dad says you're the strongest person he knows." Elena's throat tightened. "Your dad's biased. He's also right about most stuff." Mia wrapped her arms around Elena's neck in a fierce hug. "You're going to be okay. We all are." Elena held her close and tried to believe it. The auditors arrived the following Monday morning. 2 men and a woman in matching gray suits who introduced themselves with cool professionalism and immediately began dissecting Elena's entire life. They wanted tax returns, profit and loss statements, payroll records, vendor contracts, maintenance logs, guest satisfaction surveys, and occupancy rates for the past 3 years. They wanted to see the physical property, interview the staff, review the loan documents, and understand every financial decision Elena had made since inheriting the trust. Ryan took the day off work to be there. He didn't speak unless spoken to, didn't interfere with the process, but his presence alone steadied Elena in a way nothing else could. The lead auditor, a severe woman named Margaret Chen who looked like she'd never smiled in her life, spent 6 hours reviewing the books before she looked up at Elena with an expression that might have been surprise.
"These records are exceptionally detailed," she said. "Thank you. Most small business owners don't maintain this level of documentation. My father taught me that good records are the difference between surviving and thriving. I took that to heart." Margaret made a note. "Your revenue has increased an average of 12% annually over the past 3 years. 14% if you exclude the pandemic year. Your occupancy rate during off-season months is notably high. I focus on corporate retreats and small weddings during slow periods. It smooths out the seasonal variation." Another note. "Your operational costs are well managed. Vendor relationships appear stable and fairly negotiated." Elena didn't respond. She'd learned early in this process that Margaret Chen wasn't looking for conversation. She was gathering data. The property inspection took another 4 hours. Margaret walked through every room, examined every system, documented every repair and upgrade. Ryan shadowed her for the structural assessment, providing technical explanations when requested and maintaining careful neutrality throughout. When they finished, Margaret stood in the front office reviewing her notes while her colleagues packed up their materials. "We'll need to interview your staff tomorrow," she said, "and we'll want to speak with your husband separately about the loan restructuring and marriage timeline." "Of course," Elena said. "Mr. Hale, you'll need to provide documentation of your income, assets, and financial history as it relates to the joint loan application." Ryan nodded. "I can have that ready by tomorrow morning." Margaret's gaze sharpened slightly. "You're a structural engineer?"
Yes, ma'am. And you've been conducting repairs and upgrades on this property? I have. At what cost to Mrs. Hale? Ryan's expression didn't change. No cost.
I'm her husband. Maintaining our shared property is part of my responsibility. You didn't charge for labor? No? Or materials? Materials were purchased jointly and documented in the operational budget. My labor is voluntary. Margaret made a note that seemed to go on forever. That's unusual. With respect, ma'am, I don't think it's unusual for a husband to help his wife maintain their home. I think it's just marriage. The faintest hint of something, amusement maybe, or approval, flickered across Margaret's face before disappearing behind professional neutrality. We'll continue our review tomorrow, she said. Please have your staff available for interviews starting at 9 a.m. After they left, Elena collapsed into the office chair and put her head in her hands. That was brutal, she said. Ryan sat on the edge of the desk. You did great. She didn't give anything away. I have no idea if we're passing or failing. You're passing. Your records are perfect. The property's in excellent condition, and your operational decisions are sound. Victor's case is built on speculation and spite. The facts don't support him. Elena looked up at him. You really believe that? I really do. She reached for his hand. Thank you for being here. Where else would I be? Literally anywhere less stressful. Ryan smiled faintly. But then I'd miss all the fun. The staff interviews happened the next day. Margaret spoke with each employee privately. The housekeepers, the kitchen staff, the part-time event coordinator, the maintenance worker who'd been with the inn since Elena's father hired him 20 years ago. Elena tried not to panic while she waited, but every minute felt like an hour. When Margaret finished, she requested a final meeting with both Elena and Ryan. They sat across from her in the office, and Elena felt like she was waiting for a verdict that would determine the rest of her life. Margaret opened her folder and reviewed her notes in silence for what felt like an eternity. Then she looked up. Mrs. Hale, I'll be submitting my report to the trust board next week, but I can share my preliminary findings with you now. She paused. Your management of this property has been exemplary. Revenue growth is strong and sustainable. Operational costs are well controlled. Staff retention is excellent, and employee satisfaction is notably high. The property itself is well maintained with recent upgrades that have improved both safety and guest experience. Your financial records are thorough, accurate, and demonstrate sound decision-making throughout your tenure. Elena's breath stopped. Furthermore, Margaret continued, the loan restructuring you pursued was a reasonable response to economic pressures exacerbated by circumstances beyond your control. Your marriage to Mr. Hale appears to be legitimate, supported by documentation and witness testimony. And Mr. Hale's voluntary contributions to property maintenance have added measurable value to the trust assets at no cost to the estate. Ryan's hand found Elena's under the table and squeezed. Based on these findings, Margaret said, I will be recommending that the trust board dismiss Mr. Ward's petition as baseless and reaffirm your position as sole trustee and property manager. She closed the folder. You've done nothing wrong, Mrs. Hale. In fact, you've done considerably better than most people in your position would have managed. Elena's eyes stung. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm just reporting the facts. Margaret stood, offering her hand. You should be proud of what you've built here. After she left, Elena turned to Ryan and burst into tears. He pulled her into his arms immediately, and she clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a world that had been trying to drown her for months. We won, she sobbed against his shoulder. We actually won. You won, Ryan corrected gently. I just stood here looking financially stable. She laughed through her tears. You did more than that. Maybe. But this victory is yours, Elena. You earned it. She pulled back just enough to look at him, and the expression on his face, pride, relief, something deeper and warmer that made her heart skip, took her breath away. I love you, she said. The words came out raw and unplanned, but completely true. Ryan's eyes darkened. Say that again. I love you, Ryan Hale. I love your competence and your kindness and the way you fix things without being asked. I love how you make me feel like I'm not alone anymore. I love... He kissed her. Not the careful, tentative kiss from the library. Not the brief press of lips from the courthouse steps. This was desperate and deep and absolutely certain. The kind of kiss that rewrote the rules and burned away everything that came before it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ryan rested his forehead against hers. I love you too, he said quietly, in case that wasn't clear. Elena laughed, breathless and bright. It's becoming clear. Good. Because I'm done pretending this is just partnership. I'm done sleeping in a separate room and taking things slow and acting like we're not completely gone for each other. What are you saying? I'm saying let's stop waiting for the right time and just be together. Really together. Elena's heart was hammering. Ryan, I know it's fast. I know we started this backwards, but I don't care anymore. I want to wake up next to you. I want to build this life with you for real, not just on paper. I want... She kissed him again, cutting off the words. Yes, she said against his lips. Yes to all of it. Ryan smiled, genuine and unguarded and absolutely devastating. Yeah? Yeah. Should we tell Mia? Elena paused. That her dad and stepmom are actually in love and moving into the same bedroom? That seems like a conversation that requires planning. Or we could just tell her the truth. That we started as partners and became something more. Kids understand that. Do they? Mia will. She's been asking when you're going to officially be her mom for weeks now. Elena's breath caught. She has? She likes you. A lot. And she's not subtle about wanting this to be permanent. What did you tell her? That it's complicated, but that I'm working on it. Ryan tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Guess I can tell her I worked it out. Elena leaned into his touch. We should probably still have an actual conversation with her. Agreed, but first... He pulled her close again. I'm going to enjoy this for a minute. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped up in each other in the quiet office. And for the first time in months, Elena felt like she could actually breathe. The threat wasn't gone. Victor would undoubtedly challenge the audit results, push back, find new angles to attack. But right now, in this moment, she'd won. And she had Ryan. And that felt like enough to face whatever came next. But Victor Ward had one more card to play, and he was about to burn everything down to play it. The email arrived Friday afternoon while Elena was reviewing next month's event bookings. The subject line was simple: final offer. She opened it with a sense of dread that proved immediately justified. The message was from Victor's attorney, but the tone was pure Victor, cold, calculating, and designed to hurt. The offer was this: Victor would drop all legal challenges, withdraw his petition to the trust, and cease all interference with Elena's management of the inn. In exchange, Elena would transfer 20% ownership of the property to him and grant him a seat on any future operational decisions involving property sale, development, or significant structural changes. The deadline was 72 hours. If Elena refused, Victor would escalate. The email didn't specify how, but the threat was clear. He had something else planned, something worse than audits and depositions and frozen assets. Elena read the email 3 times before she called Ryan. He was at Mia's soccer practice, but he stepped away immediately when he heard her voice. He's offering to back off if I give him 20% of the inn and decision-making authority, Elena said. Ryan's silence was dangerous. And if you refuse? He escalates. No details, just threats. He's bluffing. Maybe. But what if he's not? What if he's been holding something back this whole time, waiting for the right moment to use it? Then we deal with it, together. Ryan's voice was steady, but she could hear the fury underneath. Elena, you can't give in to extortion. The minute you do, he owns you. 20% becomes 40% becomes controlling interest. You know that. I know, but I'm tired, Ryan. I'm so tired of fighting him. I know you are, but you're also winning. The audit cleared you. The trust is backing you. Victor's running out of moves. Or he's saving his best one for last. Ryan exhaled slowly. What do you want to do? Elena looked around the office, at the inn her parents had built, the legacy she'd been fighting to preserve, the life she'd nearly destroyed herself trying to save alone. Then she thought about Ryan, about Mia, about the family they were building together. I want to refuse, she said quietly. I want to tell him to go to hell and fight whatever he throws at me next. But I need to know you're still with me. Because if this gets worse, if he does have something we haven't seen coming, it's going to hurt both of us, you and Mia included. We're with you, Ryan said without hesitation. Whatever comes next, we face it together. You're sure? Elena, I married you to help you fight. That hasn't changed. If anything, I'm more invested now than I was then. She smiled despite everything. Because you love me? Because I love you. And because watching you stand up to bullies makes me want to marry you all over again. Elena laughed, wet and shaky, but genuine. Okay, then I'm refusing. Good. Draft the response and send it to Caroline. Let her handle the legal language. And Elena? Yeah? Whatever Victor's planning, he's about to learn that you don't fight alone anymore. And that makes you a hell of a lot more dangerous than he's accounting for. The response was sent within the hour. Professionally worded, but absolutely unambiguous. Elena Hale rejected Victor Ward's offer in its entirety and would continue defending her position as sole trustee and property manager through all available legal channels. Victor's reply came back in under 10 minutes. Just 3 words. Your funeral. And then, nothing. No immediate legal filings, no emergency motions, no phone calls or threats or late-night harassment, just silence. It was worse than any attack. Elena spent the weekend jumping at shadows, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Ryan stayed close, hyper-vigilant and protective in a way that should have felt suffocating but instead felt necessary. They told Mia on Saturday afternoon, sitting together in the library while she played with Duchess. Elena and I have something to tell you, Ryan said carefully. Mia looked up, immediately suspicious. Are you getting divorced? What? No, the opposite, actually. You're getting more married? Elena bit back a smile. Sort of. We're going to start sharing a room, like regular married people do. Mia processed this for approximately 3 seconds. Does this mean Elena's my real mom now? Ryan glanced at Elena, who felt her throat tighten. I can't replace your biological mom, Elena said gently. But I love you very much, and I'd be honored to be a mom figure in your life if that's okay with you. Mia considered this with her characteristic seriousness. Can I call you Mom? If you want to. Okay, can we still feed Duchess together? Absolutely. And you'll still help me with homework? Every day. Okay. Mia went back to playing with the cat, apparently considering the matter settled. Then she looked up again. Does this mean we're keeping the inn? Ryan frowned. What do you mean, kiddo? Some kids at school said their parents heard Uncle Victor's trying to take it away. I told them that was dumb because you and Mom wouldn't let that happen. Elena's chest constricted. She and Ryan had tried to shield Mia from the worst of the legal battles, but clearly the small-town rumor mill had other ideas. We're keeping the inn, Ryan said firmly. Your mom and I are making sure of that. Good. I like it here. And Duchess lives here. Can't argue with that logic, Elena murmured. After Mia went to bed that night, Elena and Ryan lay together in what was now their shared room, a larger suite on the second floor that Elena had quietly moved her things into while trying not to have a panic attack about how real this was becoming. She called you Mom, Ryan said quietly. I noticed. How do you feel about that? Elena was quiet for a moment, processing the tangle of emotions in her chest. Terrified. Honored. Completely unqualified. Ryan pulled her closer. You're more qualified than you think. I've never been a parent before. Neither had I when Mia was born. You learn as you go. What if I screw it up? Then we'll fix it together, same as everything else. Elena turned to face him in the darkness. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, but it's worth it. He kissed her forehead. You're worth it. She buried her face against his chest, breathing him in, soap and sawdust and something fundamentally steady that made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in years. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, and for the first time since Victor's final offer, Elena slept without nightmares. The blow came Monday morning. Elena was in the kitchen with the breakfast prep when her phone exploded with notifications, emails, texts, social media alerts, all coming in rapid succession. She opened the first email and felt the world tilt sideways. It was from a regional event planning blog with significant industry reach. The subject line read, "Riverside Inn under investigation for safety violations and fraud." The article was detailed, damning, and full of lies presented as facts. It claimed the inn was operating under fraudulent safety certifications, that Elena had falsified inspection records, that multiple guests had filed complaints about dangerous conditions, and that the recent marriage to Ryan Hale was a transparent attempt to avoid accountability. The article cited anonymous sources, included selectively edited quotes from public records, and featured photos of the inn that had clearly been staged to look worse than reality. It was character assassination dressed up as journalism. And it was everywhere. Within an hour, the article had been picked up by 3 other regional outlets and shared across social media dozens of times. Elena's phone was ringing off the hook with cancellation requests from booked guests. The staff group chat was in chaos. And her email was flooded with hate mail from people who didn't know her but were absolutely convinced she was a criminal. Ryan found her sitting on the kitchen floor, phone in hand, staring at nothing. "I saw the article," he said quietly. "He's destroying me." Her voice was hollow. "He can't win legally, so he's destroying my reputation instead. Even if we prove it's all lies, the damage is done. Who's going to book a wedding at an inn that's been accused of fraud and safety violations?" Ryan sat down beside her. "We fight back. We issue a statement. We threaten legal action for defamation. We provide documentation proving every claim in that article is false. It won't matter. People don't remember corrections, they remember accusations. Then we make them remember the truth." Elena looked at him with eyes that had stopped crying only because she'd run out of tears. "How?" Ryan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was steady and absolutely certain. "We throw a gala." Elena blinked. "What?" "A charity gala. Here at the inn. Black tie, open to the public, transparent as hell. We invite everyone, the press, the trust board, local officials, previous clients, anyone who's been reading Victor's lies. We show them the property, let them see the safety certifications, meet the staff, experience the venue firsthand." He leaned forward. "We prove that everything in that article is a lie by letting people see the truth for themselves." "Ryan, that's insane. Planning a gala takes months. We'd need permits, catering, entertainment, donations for the charity component. So we have 3 weeks. It'll be tight, but we can do it." 3 weeks? Long enough to plan properly, soon enough that the article's still fresh in people's minds, and our response feels immediate. Elena stared at him. "You're serious?" "Completely. Victor wants to destroy your reputation?" "Fine. Let's build it back better than before. Let's make this inn so undeniably successful and transparent that his lies can't touch you. And if it fails? If no one comes, or worse, if they come just to see the train wreck?" Ryan took her hand. "Then we fail together. But I don't think we will. Because I've seen you throw events, Elena. I've seen you turn empty rooms into magic, and I think if you put everything you have into this, you're going to prove everyone wrong." Elena closed her eyes. The exhaustion was bone deep now, but underneath it was something else, something stubborn and fierce that refused to stay down. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay? Okay. Let's throw a gala and prove Victor Ward wrong one more time." Ryan smiled. "That's my wife." They had 19 days. Elena called an emergency staff meeting that same afternoon and laid out the plan with a clarity born from desperation and fury in equal measure. A charity gala benefiting the local children's hospital, black tie optional, open to the community with tickets sold at tiered prices to encourage broad attendance. Live music, silent auction, catered dinner, and full transparency regarding the inn's operations and safety certifications. "This is our chance to control the narrative," Elena told her assembled team. "Victor wants people to believe we're fraudulent and dangerous. We're going to prove we're professional, transparent, and worth celebrating." Her head housekeeper, a woman named Maria, who'd worked at the inn for 15 years, raised her hand. "What do you need from us?"
Everything, Elena said honestly. Extra hours, creative problem solving, and patience when I inevitably panic. I can't pay overtime right now, but I can promise you profit-sharing bonuses if this works. The maintenance worker, Tom, who'd known Elena since she was a teenager helping her father fix leaky faucets, stood up. We're in. All of us. This place is family, and family doesn't let each other go down without a fight. The rest of the staff echoed his sentiment, and Elena felt something crack open in her chest, gratitude so sharp it almost hurt. After the meeting, Ryan pulled her aside. I'm going to personally inspect and certify every structural element of this building before the gala. Floor load capacity, electrical systems, fire suppression, emergency exits, everything. And I'm going to document it with professional engineering reports that I'll make available to anyone who asks. Ryan, that's going to take... I know how long it'll take. I'll make it work. You have your own job, and Mia. Mia can help. She's been asking to learn more about what I do anyway. He cupped Elena's face in his hands. Let me do this. Let me protect what we're building. Elena leaned into his touch. Okay, but you're not doing it alone. Never planned to. The next 2.5 weeks were a controlled frenzy of activity that pushed everyone involved to their absolute limits. Elena worked 18-hour days coordinating vendors, securing donations for the silent auction, designing promotional materials, and personally calling every previous client who'd ever booked an event at the inn to invite them back and reassure them the allegations were false. Ryan conducted his structural assessment with the kind of meticulous precision that turned what should have been a week's work into something that could be accomplished in days through sheer force of will and expertise. He brought Mia with him on weekends, teaching her how to read blueprints and check load-bearing calculations while she asked 10,000 questions and took notes in a purple spiral notebook. Why are you measuring the floor? Mia asked on Saturday afternoon while Ryan calculated weight distribution in the ballroom. Because when people dance at the gala, the floor needs to hold all of them at once without breaking. Will it break? Not if I do my job right. Mia nodded seriously. You're really good at your job, Dad. Ryan smiled. Thanks, kiddo. So's your mom. I know, she's been really busy. That's because she's fighting for something important. That takes work. Is Uncle Victor still being mean? Ryan's jaw tightened. Yeah, but we're meaner. Good. Elena, meanwhile, discovered that the local business community was more supportive than she'd anticipated. The florist donated centerpieces. The bakery provided desserts at cost. 3 different musicians volunteered to perform for exposure and the chance to support a local institution under attack. A printing company offered promotional materials for free after their owner, a woman whose daughter had gotten married at the inn 2 years ago, read the hit piece and called it slander. That article was garbage, she told Elena over the phone. Anyone who's actually been to your inn knows it. We're behind you. The outpouring of support should have been encouraging, but Elena couldn't shake the fear that it wouldn't be enough. That Victor's poison had spread too far, too fast, and that the gala would be sparsely attended or worse, become a spectacle where people showed up just to witness her failure. Caroline Reeves, their attorney, called midway through the second week with news that was equal parts encouraging and infuriating. We've identified the source of the article, Caroline said. The blogger who wrote it received an anonymous tip packet containing falsified inspection reports, manufactured guest complaints, and doctored photos. She published without adequate fact-checking because the documentation looked legitimate. Can we sue? Elena asked. We can threaten to sue, which might get a retraction. But the blogger has limited assets and the real culprit is whoever provided the false information in the first place. Victor. Almost certainly, but we can't prove it without discovery, which requires litigation, which takes time and money you don't have right now. Elena closed her eyes. So he gets away with it. For now. But here's the interesting part. The trust company saw the article. Margaret Chen personally called the blogger and provided documentation proving the allegations were false. The blogger published a correction this morning. Elena's eyes snapped open. She did? Front page of her site. Full retraction, apology to you personally, and a detailed explanation of how she was deceived. It's not going to undo all the damage, but it's something. It was something. A small victory in a war that felt endless. Elena thanked Caroline and went back to work. By the third week, the gala was taking shape in a way that felt almost miraculous. 200 tickets had sold, including a surprising number of local officials, business owners, and former clients who wanted to publicly demonstrate their support. The silent auction featured donated items ranging from weekend getaway packages to original artwork from local artists. The menu was finalized. The ballroom was transformed with elegant decorations that managed to be both sophisticated and welcoming, and Ryan's engineering reports were printed, bound, and displayed in the lobby for anyone to review. The trust company confirmed that Margaret Chen would be attending as a representative of the board. The local newspaper sent a reporter and photographer, and somehow, despite everything, it looked like they were going to pull this off. But 3 days before the gala, disaster struck. Elena was in the kitchen overseeing final catering preparations when Tom found her with an expression that made her stomach drop. "We've got a problem," he said quietly. "Big one." She followed him down to the basement where the main electrical panel was located. Tom pointed to a junction box that was emitting a faint burning smell and showed signs of heat damage. "How bad?" Elena asked. "Bad enough that I need to shut down power to the entire east wing until we can get an electrician out here to replace it. And that's assuming they can source the parts fast enough." "The east wing? That's where the ballroom is." "I know." Elena stared at the damaged junction box and felt the last 3 weeks of work threatening to collapse. "How long to fix it?" "If we can get someone out here today, and they have the parts, maybe 24 hours. If they don't have the parts or can't come until tomorrow, could be 3 or 4 days." "We don't have 3 or 4 days. The gala's Friday night." "I know, Elena. I'm sorry." She pulled out her phone and called Ryan. He was at work but answered immediately when he saw her name. "What's wrong?" "Electrical failure in the basement. We need to shut down power to the ballroom wing until it's repaired." Ryan swore quietly. "How bad's the damage?" "Tom says we need a complete junction box replacement." "Okay, I'm leaving now. Don't touch anything until I get there." He arrived 20 minutes later with a tool bag and a grim expression. He spent 10 minutes examining the damage before he looked at Elena and Tom. "This isn't accidental," he said flatly. Elena's blood went cold. "What?" "This junction box was deliberately overloaded. Someone ran high-draw equipment through this circuit recently, probably overnight when no one was here, and burned it out intentionally." He pointed to scorch marks that were clearly concentrated in one area. "See how the damage is localized? That doesn't happen with normal electrical failure. That happens when someone forces a system to fail." "Victor," Elena breathed. "Can you prove it?" Tom asked. "Not without security footage, which I'm guessing you don't have down here." "We don't." Ryan straightened up. "Doesn't matter. What matters is fixing this before Friday." "Tom, do you have your electrician's license?" "Expired 2 years ago when I switched to general maintenance." "But you still know how to do the work?" "Yeah." "Good. Because I'm licensed and I can supervise the repair. We'll do it ourselves." Ryan pulled out his phone and started texting rapidly. "I've got connections with electrical suppliers. I can have the parts here by tonight. We work through the night if we have to, but we get this done." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "Ryan, don't. We're not letting him win. Not now, not when we're this close." The parts arrived at 8 p.m. Ryan and Tom worked through the night while Elena brought them coffee and food and tried not to have a breakdown in the corner. By 6 a.m., the junction box was replaced, the system was tested and verified safe, and power was restored to the east wing. Ryan looked like he'd aged 5 years in one night, but when Elena threw her arms around him in exhausted gratitude, he just held her tight and said, "We're okay. It's going to be okay." Thursday was spent in final preparations. Tablecloths were pressed, centerpieces were arranged, the sound system was tested, and Elena walked through the entire event flow so many times she could have done it in her sleep. Mia helped arrange name cards at the reception table with the kind of serious concentration she usually reserved for homework. When she finished, she looked up at Elena and said, "It's going to be beautiful, Mom." Elena's throat tightened. "You think so?" "I know so. You made it beautiful." That night, Elena stood in the ballroom with Ryan, looking at everything they'd built together over the past 3 weeks. The room glowed with candlelight and carefully arranged flowers. The tables were set with elegant simplicity. The The stage was ready for the musicians. Every detail had been considered, refined, perfected. "We did it," Elena said quietly. Ryan wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "You did it. I just kept the lights on." "You did a hell of a lot more than that." "So did you." They stood there in the quiet ballroom, holding each other, and Elena tried to memorize this moment because regardless of what happened tomorrow night, they had built something beautiful together, something that couldn't be destroyed by lies or sabotage or Victor's endless cruelty. They had built a partnership, a marriage, a family, and that was worth fighting for. Friday arrived with crystalline clarity. The weather cooperated miraculously, providing a clear, cool evening perfect for an outdoor reception before the indoor dinner. Elena spent the morning overseeing final setup, the afternoon in a state of controlled panic, and the early evening getting ready with hands that wouldn't quite stop shaking. She wore a midnight blue gown that Maria had helped her select, simple but elegant, and did her makeup 3 times before she was satisfied. When she came downstairs, Ryan was waiting in the lobby, wearing a suit that made him look unfairly handsome and holding Mia's hand. Mia was dressed in a navy dress with patent leather shoes, her hair in careful braids that Elena had done that morning. "You look beautiful, Mom," Mia said solemnly. "So do you, sweetheart." Ryan just stared at her with an expression that made Elena's breath catch. "What?" she asked. "Nothing. Just reminded of why I married you." "I thought you married me to help with a bank loan." "That too, but mostly this." He gestured vaguely at all of her. "This whole incredible, terrifying, brilliant thing you do where you refuse to give up even when anyone else would have quit months ago." Elena's eyes stung. "Don't make me cry before the guests arrive." "Wouldn't dream of it." The first guests arrived at 6 p.m. and they kept coming. Former clients who wanted to show support. Local business owners who donated to the auction. Curiosity seekers who'd read the retraction and wanted to see the end for themselves. Officials from the trust company, including Margaret Chen, who greeted Elena with professional warmth and immediately began touring the property. By 6:30, the outdoor reception area was full of people in elegant attire, sampling hors d'oeuvres and champagne and talking in the kind of animated way that suggested genuine enjoyment rather than obligation. Elena moved through the crowd with Ryan at her side, greeting guests, answering questions, and trying not to hyperventilate. Multiple people commented on the beauty of the venue. Several asked about booking future events. One woman who'd read the original hit piece apologized directly to Elena for believing it and asked if she could write a positive review to help counter the damage. At 7 p.m., they moved inside for dinner. The ballroom was packed. Every seat was filled. People were standing along the walls because they'd sold more tickets than anticipated. Elena gave a short speech before dinner, thanking everyone for coming and explaining the purpose of the charity gala. She spoke about the Children's Hospital, about community support, about the importance of truth and transparency in an age of rapid-fire accusations. And then, because she couldn't help herself, she addressed the elephant in the room. "Many of you are here because you read allegations about this inn that were frightening and serious. I want to address those directly. The claims made in that article were false, every single one of them, and I'm not asking you to take my word for it." She gestured to the lobby. "In the front hall, we've made available complete engineering reports documenting the structural integrity and safety of this building. We've provided copies of all current inspection certifications, guest satisfaction surveys, and financial transparency reports. If anyone has questions, my husband and I are here to answer them." She paused, scanning the room. "This inn has been my family's legacy for 3 generations. My parents built something here that was meant to serve this community, to provide a space for celebration and connection. I've fought to preserve that legacy, and I'll continue fighting to preserve it, not because I'm perfect or because this building is perfect, but because some things are worth protecting even when the cost is high." The room was silent for a beat. Then someone started clapping. Then someone else. Within seconds, the entire ballroom was applauding, and Elena had to blink back tears as Ryan squeezed her hand. The dinner was flawless, the food was excellent, the music was beautiful, and the silent auction raised twice what they'd projected. People laughed and danced and celebrated. and the ballroom floor that Ryan had so carefully calculated and certified held every single one of them without complaint. Margaret Chen found Elena during dessert. "That was a powerful speech," she said. "Thank you. I've been reviewing the engineering reports your husband prepared. They're extraordinarily thorough." "He's extraordinarily thorough," Margaret smiled faintly. "The trust board is meeting next week to formally dismiss Victor Ward's petition. I wanted you to know that before the official notification." Elena's knees nearly buckled. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. You earned this, and you've proven that the trust's confidence in you was well placed." She paused. "For what it's worth, I think your parents would be very proud." After Margaret walked away, Elena found Ryan on the edge of the dance floor, watching Mia attempt to teach Duchess's namesake dignity to a golden retriever someone had brought. "The trust is dismissing Victor's petition," Elena said quietly. Ryan turned to her, eyes bright. "Yeah?" "Yeah." He pulled her into his arms, right there on the dance floor, and kissed her in front of 200 witnesses. When they broke apart, Elena was laughing and crying at the same time. "We won," she said against his shoulder. "We actually won. Told you we would. You're insufferably confident sometimes. It's one of my best qualities." She pulled back to look at him. "Dance with me?" "I'm a terrible dancer." "I don't care." He led her onto the floor as the band started a slow waltz, and they moved together with the kind of easy comfort that came from knowing each other's rhythms. Around them, other couples joined the dance. The ballroom glowed with warmth and music and the evidence of everything they'd fought for. "Thank you," Elena said quietly. "For what?" "For showing up that night at the diner, for offering me something impossible, for staying when it got hard." Ryan's arms tightened around her. "Thank you for being brave enough to say yes." They danced through 3 more songs before Mia appeared at their side, tugging on Ryan's sleeve. "Can I dance with Mom?" she asked. Ryan stepped back with exaggerated chivalry. "Of course. May I have the next dance?" "Deal," Mia said seriously. Elena took her daughter's hands, and they swayed together while Mia chattered about the auction items she thought they should bid on, and whether Duchess would like a fancy collar as a present. Looking over Mia's head, Elena caught Ryan's eye across the ballroom. He was watching them with an expression so full of love and pride and bone-deep contentment that it made her heart ache. This was what they'd built. Not just a successful gala or a cleared legal challenge or a saved legacy. They'd built a family, and no amount of sabotage or lies or Victor's poisonous determination could take that away. The gala ended at midnight with champagne toasts and promises from guests to return for future events. The silent auction raised $17,000 for the Children's Hospital. 3 couples booked weddings on the spot, and the local newspaper photographer captured a shot of Elena, Ryan, and Mia, standing together in the ballroom that would run on the front page of Sunday's edition with the headline, "Local Inn Proves Critics Wrong with Charity Gala Success." After the last guests left and the staff began cleanup, Elena collapsed into one of the ballroom chairs and kicked off her heels. Ryan sat beside her, loosening his tie. "How do you feel?" "Exhausted, relieved, terrified that I'm going to wake up and this will all have been a dream." "It's real, all of it." "I know." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Yeah, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." They sat in comfortable silence while the cleanup crew worked around them, and Elena let herself finally, truly believe that maybe, just maybe, the worst was behind them. But in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered a warning. Victor Ward didn't lose gracefully, and men like him always had one more move. The warning proved prophetic 48 hours later. Elena was in the office Sunday afternoon, reviewing the gala's financial results and feeling something close to optimistic, when her phone rang with an unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Hello? Mrs. Hale? This is Detective Sarah Morrison with the County Fraud Investigation Unit. I need to speak with you regarding allegations of insurance fraud related to the recent electrical incident at your property." Elena's optimism evaporated instantly. "What allegations?" "We've received a formal complaint suggesting that you and your husband deliberately caused electrical damage to your property in order to file an insurance claim and generate sympathy prior to your charity event. I'll need you to come down to the station tomorrow to answer some questions. Elena's hand tightened on the phone. This is absurd. We didn't file an insurance claim for that damage. We paid for the repairs ourselves. Then you should have no problem explaining that during our interview. Tomorrow at 10 a.m.? I'll have my attorney present. That's your right. We'll see you tomorrow, Mrs. Hale. The line went dead. Elena sat there, staring at her phone, and felt the careful victory of the past 3 weeks begin to crumble. Victor had found his final move, and this one might actually destroy them. Ryan found her 20 minutes later, still sitting in the office with the phone in her hand and a look on her face that made him cross the room in 3 strides. What happened? He asked. Victor filed a fraud complaint. The police want to question us about the electrical damage. They think we caused it deliberately for insurance money and sympathy. Ryan went very still. We didn't file an insurance claim. I told them that. They want us at the station tomorrow anyway. With Caroline? With Caroline. Ryan sat down heavily in the chair across from her. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then he said, very quietly, "He's not going to stop, is he?" "No. He's going to keep coming until he destroys me or I give him what he wants. Or until we stop him permanently." Elena looked up at him. "How? We've won every legal challenge. We've proven the marriage is legitimate. The inn is safe. My management is sound. We threw a successful gala that proved the accusations were lies. And he's still finding ways to attack. Then we go on offense instead of defense." Ryan leaned forward. "We've been reacting to Victor this whole time, responding to his moves, defending against his accusations. What if we flip the script?" "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we find out how he sabotaged the electrical system and we prove it. Then we file criminal charges for vandalism, harassment, and filing a false police report." Elena's breath caught. "Ryan, we can't prove he did it. Not yet. But I know what to look for now, and I have friends in the industry who can help me find evidence if it exists." He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling in favors, starting tonight. It's Sunday. I don't care what day it is. We're ending this." The determination in his voice was absolute, and Elena felt something shift in her chest. They'd been fighting defensively for months, trying to survive Victor's attacks. But Ryan was right. Survival wasn't enough anymore. It was time to win. Caroline met them at the police station Monday morning with a briefcase full of documentation and an expression that suggested she was looking forward to this conversation. "Before we go in," she said, "I need you both to understand something. This is a fishing expedition. Victor filed a complaint, but he has no evidence because there is no evidence. The police are obligated to investigate, but unless you confess to something you didn't do, this interview ends with them closing the case." "And if they don't close it?" Elena asked. "Then we lawyer up harder and make this so expensive and time-consuming that they drop it anyway. But it won't come to that." Caroline straightened her suit jacket. "Just tell the truth, stay calm, and let me handle the legal maneuvering." The interview room was exactly as depressing as Elena had imagined. Fluorescent lights, gray walls, a metal table that had seen better decades. Detective Morrison was a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a notepad that looked well used. "Thank you for coming in," she said as they sat down. "I'll try to keep this brief. Can you walk me through the electrical incident that occurred at Riverside Inn on the Tuesday before your charity gala?" Ryan answered, his voice steady and professional. "I discovered evidence of deliberate overloading in the basement junction box that supplies power to the East Wing. The damage pattern was consistent with someone running high-draw equipment through the circuit intentionally to cause failure." "And you determined this how?" "I'm a licensed structural engineer with 15 years of experience. I've seen accidental electrical failures. This wasn't one of them." Detective Morrison made a note. "Did you report the suspected sabotage to the police?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I had no proof of who did it, and we were 3 days from a major event that required that power to be functional. My priority was fixing the problem, not pursuing an investigation that would take weeks we didn't have." "Who do you believe sabotaged your electrical system?" Elena spoke for the first time. "Victor Ward, my stepbrother. He's been trying to take control of the inn for months through legal challenges, false accusations, and increasingly desperate sabotage attempts." "That's a serious accusation, Mrs. Hale." "It's also true. Victor filed the complaint you're investigating right now, didn't he?"
Detective Morrison's expression didn't change. I can't discuss the source of complaints. You don't have to. We both know it was him. Elena leaned forward. Detective, my husband and I paid for those electrical repairs out of pocket. We didn't file an insurance claim. We didn't seek sympathy or donations based on the damage. We fixed it quietly and moved forward with our event. If we'd wanted to commit insurance fraud, we did a terrible job of it. Can you provide receipts for the repairs? Ryan slid a folder across the table. Parts receipts, labor documentation signed by both myself and Tom Harrison, who assisted with the work, and a detailed engineering report documenting the nature of the damage and the repairs completed. Everything's time-stamped and verified. Detective Morrison reviewed the documents in silence. When she looked up, her expression had shifted slightly. Still professional, but with an edge of frustration that suggested she'd suspected this was a waste of time. These documents appear to support your account, she said. I'll need to verify them independently, but assuming they check out, I don't see evidence of fraudulent intent. So we're free to go? Caroline asked. For now. I may have follow-up questions, but you're not under arrest and you're not being charged with anything at this time. Detective Morrison closed her notepad. Off the record? Whoever filed this complaint didn't do their homework. Your story holds up. Thank you, Detective, Elena said quietly. Outside the station, Elena leaned against Ryan's truck and let out a shaky breath. That was terrifying, she said. That was Victor overplaying his hand, Ryan corrected. He was so desperate to hurt you that he filed a complaint without evidence, and now we have a police record of his false accusation. Caroline nodded. Which we can use if we decide to pursue harassment charges. He's building a pattern of malicious behavior that's going to bite him eventually. How soon is eventually? Elena asked. That depends on what Ryan finds. Caroline looked at him. You said you were calling in favors? Already done. I've got 3 different security consultants reviewing the basement for evidence of entry, and a forensic electrician coming tomorrow to analyze the damage pattern and provide an expert opinion on whether it was sabotage. And if they confirm it was deliberate, then we have proof. And we take that proof to the police, the trust company, and anyone else who'll listen. Ryan's jaw was set. Victor wanted to play dirty. Fine. Let's show him what happens when someone fights back with actual evidence instead of lies. The forensic electrician arrived Tuesday morning with equipment that looked like something from a science fiction movie. He spent 4 hours in the basement, taking samples, documenting burn patterns, and analyzing the junction box with the kind of precision that reminded Elena of watching Ryan work. His name was Marcus Webb, and when he finally emerged with his findings, his expression was grim. This was absolutely deliberate sabotage, Marcus said, laying out photos on the kitchen table. Someone connected a portable welding unit to this circuit and ran it continuously for several hours. The power draw was astronomical, far beyond what the system was designed to handle. It was calculated to cause catastrophic failure without triggering the main breaker. Could it have been accidental? Elena asked, even though she already knew the answer. Not a chance. This required knowledge of electrical systems and deliberate intent. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Ryan studied the photos. Can you testify to this if needed? Absolutely. I'll prepare a full report with my professional assessment. This is textbook vandalism with intent to cause property damage. What about evidence of who did it? Caroline asked. That's where it gets interesting. Marcus pulled up photos on his tablet. I found tool marks on the access panel that are consistent with forced entry. Whoever did this didn't have a key. They pried the panel open, did the damage, and tried to reseal it. They did a decent job, but not good enough. So we have proof of break-in and sabotage, Ryan said. You have proof that someone illegally accessed your electrical system and deliberately caused damage. Whether you can prove who did it is a different question. Elena's hope deflated slightly. So we still can't tie it to Victor. Not directly, but we can force the police to investigate properly now. And if there's any physical evidence, fingerprints, DNA, security footage from nearby businesses, they'll find it. Caroline made notes rapidly. I'll file a formal complaint today with this report attached. The police will have to open a real investigation. The complaint was filed by 3 p.m. Detective Morrison called Elena personally an hour later. I've reviewed the forensic report, she said. This changes things. We're opening a criminal investigation into the vandalism. I'll need to interview everyone who had access to the building during the relevant time frame. Whatever you need, Elena said. And Mrs. Hale? I owe you an apology. The fraud complaint was baseless, and I should have recognized that sooner. You were doing your job, Detective. I appreciate your thoroughness now. The investigation took 6 days. During that time, Elena and Ryan fell into a strange rhythm of normalcy, punctuated by police interviews and evidence gathering. They ran the inn, took care of Mia, and tried to pretend they weren't waiting for the other shoe to drop. On the 7th day, Detective Morrison called with news. We found security footage from a business across the street that shows a vehicle matching Victor Ward's SUV parked near your property at 2 a.m. on the night of the vandalism. We also recovered a partial fingerprint from the access panel that matches prints we have on file for Mr. Ward from a previous background check. Elena's knees nearly gave out. You can prove it was him. We can prove he was present at the scene and that he accessed the electrical panel. Combined with the forensic evidence of deliberate sabotage and his documented pattern of hostility toward you, we have enough for charges. The DA is filing criminal vandalism and filing a false police report. Arrest warrant should be issued within 48 hours. After the call ended, Elena just stood there holding her phone, trying to process what she'd just heard. Ryan found her in the hallway. What did Morrison say? They're arresting Victor. They have proof he sabotaged the electrical system. Ryan pulled her into his arms, and Elena finally let herself fall apart. She cried against his shoulder, not from sadness, but from relief so overwhelming it felt like physical pain leaving her body. It's over, she sobbed. It's actually over. Yeah, Ryan said softly, his hand stroking her hair. It's over. Victor Ward was arrested on Thursday morning at his office in front of his colleagues and clients. The charges were criminal vandalism, filing a false police report, and after further investigation, fraud related to the falsified documents provided to the blogger. The arrest made the local news. The same newspaper that had run the gala success story ran a follow-up piece about the charges, with a timeline of Victor's months-long campaign against Elena. The trust company issued a formal statement reaffirming their confidence in Elena's management and permanently barring Victor from any involvement with the family trust. And slowly, methodically, Elena's reputation was rebuilt stronger than before. 2 weeks after Victor's arrest, Elena received a handwritten letter from Margaret Chen. It was brief but devastating in its sincerity. The letter read, Mrs. Hale, the board has reviewed your management comprehensively in light of recent events. Your grace under sustained attack, your commitment to transparency, and your ability to maintain operational excellence while defending against false accusations has been extraordinary. The trust's assets are in excellent hands. Congratulations on your victory, and please accept our apologies for the scrutiny you endured. You deserved better. Elena read the letter 3 times before she folded it carefully and placed it in the fire safe where she kept her parents' important documents. It felt like the final piece of validation she'd been fighting for. That evening, she found Ryan on the back patio, where they'd first decided to turn their partnership into something more. He was watching the river, and she sat beside him in comfortable silence for a long moment. The trust board sent me a letter, she said finally. Good news? The best. Full support, full confidence, and an apology for the scrutiny. Ryan smiled. You earned that. We earned it. You and me and Mia and everyone who refused to let Victor's lies define us. So what happens now? Elena considered the question. 6 months ago, the answer would have been simple. Survive, rebuild, hold on. But now? Now we build something permanent, she said. Not just the inn, but us, our family, our future. Ryan turned to face her. What does that look like? I don't know yet, but I think I want to find out. She took his hand. I've spent so long fighting to preserve my parents' legacy that I forgot I'm allowed to build my own, and I want to build it with you. Elena Sassi, let me finish. I want to make you a real partner in this inn, not just legally, but operationally. I want to co-parent Mia with you as her actual mother, not just the woman her dad married. I want to stop thinking of our marriage as something we fell into and start treating it as something we chose. She paused. I want to choose you, Ryan. Every day. For real. Ryan's eyes were bright. I've been choosing you since the day you walked into that diner looking like your world was ending. I'll keep choosing you for as long as you'll have me. That might be a really long time. Good. He kissed her as the sun set over the river, and Elena felt something settle in her chest that had been restless for years. This was home. Not just the building, but the man beside her and the life they were creating together. The next morning, Elena made two decisions. First, she transferred 50% ownership of Riverside Inn to Ryan Hale, making him a full legal partner in the business they'd been protecting together. The paperwork was filed with the trust company and accepted without question. Second, she scheduled a meeting with an architect to discuss expansion plans. The inn had outgrown its current capacity, and with the demand from the gala still generating booking requests, it was time to think bigger. When she told Ryan about both decisions, he looked at her like she'd handed him the world. "You're giving me half the inn?" he asked. "I'm making you my partner, actually, officially, permanently. Not because I need you to save me, but because I want to build this with you." "Elena, that's what you deserve. What we both deserve," she smiled. "Besides, you've already fixed half the building anyway. Might as well own what you've been maintaining." Ryan laughed, pulling her close. "You're incredible, you know that?" "I'm learning." The expansion plans took 3 months to finalize. They added a new wing with 12 additional guest rooms, a modernized commercial kitchen, and a dedicated event space that could handle larger weddings and corporate functions. The construction was managed by Ryan personally, ensuring every detail met his exacting standards. Mia appointed herself project supervisor, carrying a clipboard and asking contractors questions that were sometimes surprisingly insightful. She'd also started telling people at school that her mom owned an inn and her dad was an engineer, and they were building something amazing together. Elena had never corrected her. During construction, life settled into a rhythm that felt almost impossibly normal. Ryan and Elena ran the inn together, dividing responsibilities based on their strengths. He handled structural maintenance, systems management, and financial projections. She managed operations, guest relations, and event coordination. They made decisions together over morning coffee and evening walks by the river. Mia thrived. She'd officially started calling Elena Mom full-time, and Elena had stopped crying about it after the first dozen times. They had a routine: homework at the kitchen table, bedtime stories in the library, weekend adventures exploring the countryside. And slowly, imperceptibly, the marriage that had started as a strategic arrangement became the realest thing in Elena's life. 6 months after Victor's arrest, the new wing opened to rave reviews. The first event was a corporate retreat that booked every available room and left glowing feedback. The second was a wedding that led to 3 more bookings from guests who attended. Riverside Inn was thriving. 1 year to the day after Elena had walked into Morgan's diner looking like someone who'd lost everything, Ryan planned a surprise. He told Elena they were going out to dinner, asked Maria to watch Mia, and drove them to the same diner where this whole impossible story had started. They sat in the same booth, ordered the same terrible coffee, and Ryan pulled out a small velvet box. Elena's breath caught. "What is this?" "An upgrade." He opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful ring, sapphire flanked by small diamonds. "The first ring I gave you was a $40 pawn shop placeholder because we were in a hurry and neither of us knew what we were doing. This one is because I love you, because I choose you, and because I want to marry you properly this time." "We're already married," Elena said, her voice shaking. "I know, but we got married out of desperation and legal necessity. I want to marry you again out of love and choice." He took her hand. "Elena Ward Hale, will you marry me? For real this time?" Elena was crying openly now. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger next to the plain silver band she'd never taken off, and it fit perfectly. They renewed their vows 3 months later in the inn's ballroom with Mia as the flower girl, Maria as Elena's maid of honor, and Tom walking Elena down the aisle because she asked him to, and he cried when she did. The ceremony was small, just close friends, trusted staff, and the people who'd stood by them through the worst of the fight. Caroline was there. Margaret Chen sent a gift. Even Detective Morrison attended, joking that she liked to see cases with happy endings. Ryan's vows were simple and devastating. "I married you once to help you fight, I'm marrying you again because I never want to stop fighting beside you. You're the strongest, bravest, most stubborn person I know, and I love you more every day. Here's to building the rest of our lives together. Elena's vows were messier, but just as true. I married you because I was desperate, and you were kind. I'm marrying you now because you're my best friend, my partner, and the person who taught me that asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I love you, Ryan Hale, and I'm so grateful you walked into my life and refused to leave. Mia, who'd been promised she could give a speech, stood up during the reception and announced to everyone present that her parents were the coolest people ever, and that they'd beaten the bad guy like superheroes, and that she was really glad they decided to stay married. The room erupted in applause, and Elena laughed until she couldn't breathe. That night, after the guests had left and Mia was asleep upstairs, Elena and Ryan stood together in the ballroom that had been the site of so many battles and victories. We did it, Elena said quietly. We did. I keep waiting for something else to go wrong. Ryan pulled her close. Something probably will eventually. That's life. But we'll handle it the same way we've handled everything else. Together. Promise? Promise. They swayed together in the empty ballroom, no music playing, no crisis demanding attention. Just two people who'd found each other in the worst circumstances and built something extraordinary from the wreckage. Elena thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, alone, desperate, drowning in debt and fear. That woman would never have believed this ending was possible. But Ryan had taught her something crucial. The best foundations are built under pressure, and the strongest structures are the ones that survive the stress tests. They'd survived. More than that, they'd thrived. 5 years later, Riverside Inn was recognized as one of the top boutique hotels in the region. Elena had expanded operations to include a culinary program featuring local ingredients and a partnership with regional artists for rotating gallery exhibitions. Ryan had left his consulting firm to work full-time as the inn's operations director and had started a side business teaching structural engineering workshops for small business owners. Mia was 12, fiercely intelligent, and already talking about studying architecture in college so she could design buildings with her dad and run hotels with her mom. They'd never heard from Victor again. He'd been convicted, served 8 months, and quietly left the state after his release. Elena occasionally wondered if he'd ever realized that his campaign to destroy her had actually made her stronger. Probably not. Men like Victor rarely learned those lessons. But it didn't matter anymore. On a Tuesday afternoon in late spring, Elena stood in the inn's lobby reviewing reservation requests when Ryan appeared with 2 cups of coffee and a familiar expression. "What are you planning?" she asked suspiciously. "I was thinking we should expand again, add a spa wing." "A spa wing?" Mia suggested it. She says people like to relax when they visit hotels. Elena laughed. Our 12-year-old daughter is now offering business advice? She's not wrong. The market research supports it. You did market research based on our daughter's suggestion? I'm thorough. You know this about me. Elena set down her coffee and crossed the lobby to where Ryan was standing. She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him soundly. I love you, she said. And yes, let's build a spa wing. Let's keep building forever. Forever's a long time. Good. I'm not going anywhere. Ryan smiled against her lips. Me neither. And there, in the inn they'd saved together, surrounded by the life they'd built from impossible choices and desperate chances, Elena Ward Hale finally stopped waiting for the next crisis. Because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. When you build on a foundation of partnership, trust, and love, the structure can withstand anything, even the worst storms, even the longest fights, even the impossible odds. They'd started as strangers making a crazy bargain in a diner at 2 a.m. They'd become partners, then spouses, then parents, then something deeper than all those words combined. They'd become home, and that was worth every battle they'd fought to get here. The foundation held, and it always would.